Hello everyone, and a very happy Doctor Who Day. Because it's Doctor Who Day, the Doctor Who YouTube channel and social medias have been treating us to various small things, including what was just dropped, which is a list of deleted scenes, not only from Season 1, but also the 60th anniversary, and they're about 10 minutes in total. I'm going to break down each deleted scene and tell you guys whether I think they should have been deleted or not, and we're also going to look at Russell T Davies's reasoning for them being deleted. This is probably going to be one of a couple of videos I release today, so subscribe if you want to keep up to date with all the latest Doctor Who stuff. I'm really excited to dive in and give my thoughts on all of these with you guys, so let's just get right into it. So the first scene is an early scene from The Giggle, which has the Doctor and Donna arriving on the unit helipad alongside Kate Stewart, Shirley Ann Bingham, and Colonel Ibrahim. This scene involves Donna asking for protection not only for Wilfred, but also for the rest of her family, mainly Rose, Sylvia, and Sean. Kate then essentially says that they've got no time to do that due to the fact that they've all got families, but there's just no time. And then Donna goes, no, you must have been monitoring my family in order to know where the TARDIS is going to arrive. I want them protected now. Kate then relents and lets Shirley sort out protections for the Noble family under file Mott Temple Noble, which is really fun. It shows that UNIT keeps an eye on all the Doctor's companions, but also I really like it because it's showing Donna's defiance of UNIT to a degree, something that's always been there. Even in Series 4, we have the scene where she goes, I'll have a salute as well. I think this is a really nice little character moment, shows how concerned she is for her family in the moment, and I would have kept this one in personally. On the website, Russell T Davies says, cut because it spoils the sweeping entrance, to stop and have a chat and get to Mal faster. I get why he would do this. You want a grand entrance for UNIT, but at the same time, I just think it's a nice character moment, and I think it just screams Donna Noble. So personally, I would have kept this one in. The second one, though, is a lot less consequential. It's basically just an extended sequence of the Doctor and Donna running through the doors in the Toymaker's domain, and RTD says it's cut for time, which honestly, I think that's a fair enough cut to make. And then we move on to Space Babies. Now, there are a couple of scenes that they didn't include on this video that I would have liked to have seen that we know were deleted, mainly the stuff to do with the song that ties into the push the button thing. That isn't included here, but we do get a scene of Ruby sharing her experience as an orphan with the Space Babies before being interrupted by an excitable Doctor on his way to Portal 357. She's basically talking about how she was younger than the babies when she was abandoned, and then she was adopted by this wonderful mother, and she's asking the babies if they've ever seen snow. Honestly, again, this is one of those scenes where I do think it's good for character building. Again, Russell says it was cut for time, which is a shame. Millie's wonderful here. Part of me does wonder if one of the big issues with this series is just that it needed to be longer in length, not only episode-wise, but also just the length of the episodes themselves. I wonder if, for the stories that RTD is trying to tell, 45 minutes is not really conducive to a lot of this stuff, and that's going to become more apparent as we go further down the series, where I think we get to even more crucial scenes. And then we get this scene where they're heading into the sort of underlayer of the bogeyman in Space Babies, and they're essentially trying to navigate towards him, and the Doctor is saying, into the belly of the beast, and they're trying to navigate. I like this scene because it builds up a bit of creepiness and tension, which I somewhat feel is missing in the final episode. And I get, again, cutting it for time so we can get to the bogeyman faster. That seems to be the theme as to why these things were cut. But personally, I think having some more of those quiet sort of ambient moments might have helped the atmosphere of this one quite a bit. Because as it is, I think Space Babies feels a bit too light. So I think having a couple of those moments of quiet would have helped. The next one shows the Doctor recovering from the airlock opening and basically saving the bogeyman at the end of the episode. He even checks on him afterwards and goes, are you okay, before quickly darting away. I think this is a nice character moment, but I'm not too mad that this one was cut, mainly because I think we get the gist of what he's doing in this scene without this scene necessarily being required. So in this case, I'm okay with it being cut, and then RTD said not needed, though a wide shot of this scene plays on screens behind Jocelyn. Okay, so it technically does survive in the episode in some form, which is interesting. Devil's Cord. After witnessing a miserable performance of Three Blind Mice, the Doctor declares, someone's stolen music. RTD's note says it felt a bit psychic of the Doctor. How does he know it's stolen? Yeah, I think this is one where I agree with Russell here. I think the Doctor just outright saying someone's stolen music so early on feels a bit heavy-handed, feels a little bit too like he knows too much too quickly, and it's kind of spelling out the plot rather than letting the audience figure out the plot for themselves. So I agree with this cut. I think this cut is a good cut to make. The next scene is Maestro. It's a full scene with Jinx Monsoon trying to figure out who it is that she was just summoned by, and then they use their tuning fork to basically try and locate the Doctor and Ruby. I quite liked this scene. What I would have liked to see when she says the line, "Now who was that?" would have been the tuning fork maybe picking up the TARDIS's sound, and then that tipping her off as to this being the person who trapped her father. I think that would have been a really fun little bit. But as it stands, I'm not too mad that this scene was cut, although I do like the Maestro quite a bit, so I wouldn't be mad at more scenes with her. But RTD's note is just cut for time, get on with it. Again, I do understand this, but part of me would love a cut of season 1 that's like 60-minute episodes where everything can stay in, just because I think it might make a more like fulfilling experience. I can't help but feel that maybe one of the issues with season 1 is that it was slightly edited for a TikTok generation, which look, I get it, you know, they want to get a younger audience, attention spans are lower. But I just think these quieter scenes do help in building atmosphere and building tone, and there's some that I think are even more essential that were cut. Scene 72 is the Doctor and Ruby running back up the stairs as music returns to the world, and he basically says there's about to be a big explosion of music, which he basically already says on the rooftop anyway, so I can understand why it's cut. It almost feels like reiteration. So again, this is a cut that I think, yeah, I'm on board with this cut personally. LTD said, cut because this explains what's about to happen, just let it happen instead, and I agree. Again, show don't tell, I think that's a good note. I'm in agreement with that. Scene 74, we get a scene very similar to the scene where Ruby plays her theme on the piano and all of the people in the windows come out to watch, but instead now it's a bunch of new people rediscovering the joy of music and singing and playing instruments and stuff. It's quite nice. I would have kept this personally just as a nice little moment, but I understand why it's not really required to get the point across. And again, Russell says, nice idea, but not really needed, which fair enough. Next up, we have the Doctor missing. Ruby's waiting outside the TARDIS alone with the mysterious woman standing nearby. I quite liked this scene because it shows like Ruby very uncomfortable early on, but I do understand that there's already quite a few scenes of that, so they thought that maybe one extra wasn't necessarily needed. Russell's note was, it's already a long, slow opening, get on with it. Fair enough. I mean, personally, I think me and Russell disagree slightly on pacing of Doctor Who. I would have it be slower paced, personally, but maybe I'm just the sort of person who is looking at it through the perspective of what I would want as a viewer. Maybe Russell is thinking about it more from, okay, if you're a kid, do we need another scene of Ruby sort of standing there, looking ominously at the woman? I do get that. Scene 53 and 54 is interesting. So apparently this is the morning after Roderick Williams' defeat. Once she's defeated him by using the woman, she thinks, oh, maybe the woman is gone now. So she runs outside to her window only to discover she's still there. What I like about this scene is just the quiet, sad, somber crying she does afterwards. I think that's a really effective moment, but I do like as well something that Russell says where he thinks the scene where she says, can you leave me alone now, works better. I think both work, but I'll let you guys decide which one you prefer on that front. And then we skip all the way to Legend of Ruby Sunday, where it's an alternative version of the sequence where Harriet Arbinger announces the arrival of Sutek. Honestly, I think the only difference to this is the blocking is slightly different and the way she says Sutek is more whispered. There's probably other differences that I didn't notice, but I didn't really feel like I was missing that much by this one not being in here. It's just basically an alternate cut of the same scene. So that's fine. Scene 35, Empire of Death, the final episode. This is one of the ones I really wanted to see. The Doctor, Ruby and Mel arriving in 2046 in Roderick Williams' office in Parliament. After they leave the remembered TARDIS, it fades away. Its purpose fulfilled, and Gatwa has a line saying, the memory has died. Now, Russell's reasoning for this being cut is he said, we lost this because I didn't want the remembered TARDIS to die. I like the thought of it still out there somewhere. I'm assuming part of this is because of Tales of the TARDIS as well. He wanted a reason, like, if there was ever going to be, like, more Tales of the TARDIS, like, oh, that's where they take place. They take place on the remembered TARDIS, and we just assume that after the events of Empire of Death, it goes out into the universe in search of old doctors and companions and so on and so forth, which is a nice thing. But I don't know, I think there's something quite sad about the TARDIS, the memory TARDIS dying, the memory of the TARDIS dying, and I think given the sort of themes of Empire of Death being a lot about death and the destruction of the universe, I personally would have kept this in, and you could just say that, you know, whenever the memory TARDIS shows up here on out, it's pre that moment in Empire of Death. I think that would be fine. Now, here's the final scene that I think needed to be kept in completely and utterly, and I don't think this should have been removed, and I think it was a bad decision straight up for them to remove it. So this scene deals with the whistle in Empire of Death. It's the final scene where they're dragging Sutekh across the vortex using the TARDIS, and Ruby goes, "How did you do that?" i.e. summon the TARDIS towards him when Sutekh was on top of it. He goes, "Love my whistle." And then he says that he's basically going to program a control sequence into the whistle in order to summon the TARDIS towards him using it, and then give it to his past self in the memory TARDIS. I don't know why you would cut this, because as the episode exists, that whistle comes out of absolutely nowhere, and I really don't know why they decided to cut this. Obviously, I understand, you know, Doctor Who is made to a certain, like, time limit and stuff within the BBC schedule, but I think this is a crucial and essential scene, and I would have easily cut down other scenes in order to justify putting this scene back in. He also says, "We're fighting a god, we get a trick once," which I really like as a line, and then it carries on for a little bit, where we get him saying, "We get one last song," and then he actually uses the jukebox to play, of all things, "There's Always a Twist at the End." I'll admit, I don't think we need that bit. I think having that song would have kind of ruined the finale sort of grand atmosphere that I think this scene is trying to go for, but I definitely would have kept in some sort of explanation for the whistle and how he gets it and why the TARDIS responds to it, because as it stands, it's just kind of like, what? Where did the whistle come from? Like, what's the relevance of this whistle? I don't know. At least this gives some sort of, like, reasoning for it. Russell's note is, "This seemed terribly complicated, but watching it again now, it's great. Maybe we shouldn't have cut it. Though I don't think anyone wondered where he got his whistle from." I did, and I'm glad I know now. I would have kept this in personally. I also really like the scene of the Doctor seemingly flirting with himself. I always find that quite a fun thing when they do that in Doctor Who. Ncuti has a line saying, "I need to moisturise more," and he winks at him. I think that's just very fun and very his Doctor. And again, a nice character moment I would have liked to have seen in the final cut of the finale. But yeah, overall, I think a lot of these could have benefited from staying in. Some of them, for example, like the Doctor saying that the Maestro has gotten rid of music. I don't think you need that in that early on, and that's basically said afterwards anyway. Others I think are absolutely crucial, like the whistle scene. I don't know why that was cut. Again, the explanation isn't perfect, but at least it's something, whereas as it stands, the actions of the finale are pretty much just random and don't really make much sense. I really would have liked to see Donna's scene stay in as well, along with the memory TARDIS scene. Again, most of the scenes that I think are pivotal to keep would have been the finale ones, just because I think a lot of that finale would have benefited from some extra explanation. I do think that me and Russell have slightly different views of pacing for these episodes. Maybe it's just me, but I like my Doctor Who a bit slower paced. I think one of his best stories is Wild Will Yonder, and I think that's a story where you really feel the atmosphere of the story, whereas with stories like, for example, Empire of Death, again, very different types of stories, but I feel like they're going so fast and going through so much that you don't really get a feel for the devastation that's going on as much as I would like. You do get that one scene with the woman with the spoon, which I guess is a nice scene, but I think just more scenes of explaining some things and lengthening some things out really does go a long way in making a series feel more complete. So I'm hoping they aren't as cut happy with season 2. We'll have to wait and see. I do think Doctor Who would benefit from being an hour long in total, but what do you guys think? What scenes would you have kept in? What scenes would you have removed? There is also a bunch of scripts now made available on the BBC website, which are the original drafts of episodes of season 1. I might do a separate video on that. Depends how much stuff they cut and change, and if there's anything I think really would benefit from being talked about. But that's about it for today's video. If you did enjoy, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later.